hang on, is that the new Oppo Hasselblad teleconverter lens on the new Find X9 Pro in your pocket? Or are you just happy to see me? Look at this thing. Apologies for being a child, but this phone is insane in all the best ways, and not just because it has a sticky outy zoomy camera accessory thing, although this is pretty neat. Oppo have just launched the Find X9 and X9 Pro, and I've partnered with them to give you a full walkthrough of the Pro, which I've been using for a couple of weeks now, to see what it can do. And you know what? This might just be my new favorite Android phone, but see what you think. So I would say there are 5 headline upgrades with the X9 series, and in particular the Pro. Number 1, the design. This has the slimmest bezels ever on an Oppo. Doesn't make a huge difference, but 1.15 millimeters, I think it is, symmetrical bezels, so you get a slightly smaller footprint and just a really modern looking phone. This thing feels great. But also, look at the back of this thing. It is quite a departure from previous Oppo phones with this whole new camera module design. It's an aluminium frame, even though they call this titanium gray, I think it is. There's 2 colors, a white and this sort of gray, which is very nice, but a pretty bold new design for Oppo, although it is quite similar to a certain rival. Number 2, the battery. 7,500 milliamp hours, which, for context, the S25 Ultra and also the iPhone 17 Pro Max have 5,000 milliamp batteries. It's 50% larger in capacity on this guy, and it's just insane. Like, you can literally go for a weekend with this and not bring a charger with you. Number 3, the software, which, if I'm honest, used to be a reason to maybe not buy an Oppo phone, but I love it. ColorOS 16 has introduced some really big improvements to responsiveness and speed. Watching this on a 60 FPS YouTube video is not the best way to experience this. It is the most responsive, the fastest phone, honestly, I've ever used. Number 4, we do of course have a new chip with this guy. It's one of the first phones to come with the MediaTek Dimensity 9500, and this is a big upgrade, particularly for graphics and also efficiency. And I will show you some numbers in a second. And as I'm recording this video, I also realize I've got a little matchy match going. And finally, number 5, the camera. Where do we even start? There's so much to talk about here. How about this little guy right there? Oppo have brought over the multi-spectral sensor from last year's Find X8 Ultra. They've upgraded it and then put it in the X9 series. I wish every phone had one of these, as it analyzes the white balance, the color temperature of your surroundings. You'll get much more true-to-life photos and more natural skin tones in your portraits. I am not a professional photographer, you probably already knew that, but for me, even if you're going to add a filter or edit them in post, having a realistic starting point from your photos, to me, is more important than zooming in and seeing which one's a little bit sharper. Color accuracy is so important, and this benefits all the rear cameras, although less so at, long-range zooms. So technically, the Find X9 Pro is a quad lens setup with that spectral sensor, but the 3 main cameras are a 50 megapixel ultra-wide, a 50 megapixel main wide, and a whopping 200 megapixel 3x telephoto. Pop quiz though, how many telephoto cameras did last year's Find X8 Pro have? The answer is 2. It had a 3x and a 6x, 2 optical lenses. Now, well, we just have the 1, which on paper sounds like a downgrade. But no, before you write your letters to Mr. Oppo and tell him how he's made a mistake here, this is such an improvement. So on the X9 Pro, we just have this single 3x optical lens, but they've bumped the resolution from 50 megapixels to 200 megapixels. They've also doubled the sensor size. We get a ridiculously wide f2.1 aperture, so it captures more light, we have bigger pixels, and simply more information from the high resolution. Meaning we still get those lovely 70mm equivalent 3x optical shots, which are perfect for your portraits, but then you can punch into a 6x quote-unquote optical crop, and even up to a 13.2x lossless zoom, as they call it. And side by side with the Galaxy S25 Ultra, which to be fair is due a refresh in a couple of months, well, I'll let you be the judge. You can also punch all the way up to 120 times, and Oppo's super resolution algorithm does its best AI upscaling to help out at longer zooms, although at a certain point, you can put lipstick on a pig, as they say. Which is where, if you fancy paying a little bit extra for this optional accessory, Oppo's new Hasselblad teleconverter comes into play. Simply pop the X9 Pro into this case, and then slide the lens down around the camera module until it clicks, ignore some confused side eyes from people around you, and then open the camera app and swipe over to the, well, very aptly named Hasselblad teleconverter mode, giving you a 10 times optical zoom, with some genuinely impressive 20 times, even 40 times photos as well. Now this is an extra, and I will add pricing in the description, but for concerts, for gigs, for matches, for spying on people, okay, maybe less of the spying on people one, but it's a lot of fun to play with. It can struggle with moving subjects, particularly in low light, and you may get a few looks pulling this out in public, although since proper cameras with, interchangeable lenses are banned at most events, you could easily sneak this in and get some really cool shots. And it's not just for photos, you can punch in up to 50 times shooting 4K video. There is definitely some AI upscaling going on here to sharpen and denoise. Most of the time it does a good job, although at super long range zooms, things can get a little bit PS2-y. It's a genuinely neat little accessory. Of course, we have seen something very similar from a rival brand, but this is great for if you prefer Oppo phones. But it would have been nice if there was some sort of electronic interaction, like the software knew if you put it on so it would go straight into the right mode, or give you like a cool little startup, like a aperture opening, or just something, because currently all you're doing is sliding it into place via the case. It doesn't actually interact with the phone in any way. But anyway, most of the time you'll be shooting with this, the main camera, and the X9 Pro introduces a new sensor. It's the Sony LYT828, if you're asking, letting in 30% more light. But while this does have a 50 megapixel resolution, same as before, this actually is an industry first where it captures the full 50 megapixels by default, giving you noticeably more detailed shots, particularly when you zoom in. It's clever though, because it can dynamically shift back to 12 megapixels in low light or tricky lighting, where traditional pixel binning comes in handy. But for those landscapes, for portraits, for general shots in good lighting, shooting 50 megapixels just in the regular auto photo camera mode is a really cool feature, and we just haven't seen it anywhere else. Now, if you're a regular on the channel, and of course you are, right? I made a video a few months back on the Oppo Find X8 Ultra, the previous flagship, which launched a little bit later than the X8 Pro and also was China only, but I had a complaint because it didn't ship with log video. You couldn't shoot log, which for a lot of people, they're like, who cares? But for a pro-level phone with, a pro-level camera, a lot of people do want to shoot log, like myself, because it means you can add your own LUTs, your own color grades, to make your videos look more unique, and also gives you a wider dynamic range. I have good news. The Find X9 Pro supports full 4K 120 ACES certified log. I would have preferred if they'd added it to the regular video mode, and by default you actually have to enable it in the settings for it to then show up in the Pro video mode, but you can turn on log, which then shoots in this flat profile. But even if you don't shoot in log, the video quality on this is so good. Like, first of all, just look how seamless this can zoom in and out. You can barely tell when it switches between the three lenses. And more importantly, look how consistent the color is throughout. We also have a revamped X-Pan mode. We've got Hasselblad's Master mode, and this has been designed to replicate the characteristics of the Hasselblad X2D camera. But I think Find X9 Pro, for me at least, this is the best photography camera on a phone, and the video is not far behind either. But what do you think? Right now, which phone would you say has the best camera? They've also significantly upgraded the front camera, bumped the resolution from 32 to 50 megapixels, we have a wider aperture, f2 rather than f2.5, and it now supports autofocus. I think my biggest issue with previous Oppo phones has been the front selfie camera, and this is much better. I've got to be honest, I don't know what's more exciting, the fact that I have a new sofa for the studio, or the fact that we have a whopping 7,500 mAh battery in here. So let's put it to the test versus the S25 Ultra, which of course has a 5,000 mAh battery, just a simple YouTube playback test. And after, well, a little over 15 hours, the S25 Ultra kicked the bucket, leaving the X9 Pro with 25% left of its battery. So not exactly 50% more, given the capacity difference, but that is a substantially longer battery life. This is a proper 2-day phone when it comes to battery life. And of course we have their 80-watt SuperVOOC wire charging, 50-watt wireless, and I think 10-watt reverse wireless you can top up other devices. So much bigger capacity, much longer battery life, and it's all in the same form factor. It's the same 8.25mm thickness as last year's X8 Pro. Thing is though, battery life isn't just about the size of the battery, even though they're using their third generation silicon carbon chemistry and all that fancy stuff behind the scenes. It's also down to the chip they use. And this is one of the first phones to come with the MediaTek Dimensity 9500. How much faster is it versus last year's X8 Pro with the previous gen 9400 chip? Well, in Geekbench 6, I measured about 11% uptick in single core and about 10% in multi-core, and then jumping over to 3D Mark, about a 12% boost. They've also squeezed in a 33% larger vapor chamber cooler this year, so that helps dissipate the heat away from the chip and then out through the aluminium frame of the body to keep the phone cooler and also give you better sustained performance. And if you're wondering why we don't have the Snapdragon chip in here, obviously they just announced the Snapdragon 8 Elite Gen 5, awful naming scheme, but generally Oppo reserved that for their Ultra series of phones. And while obviously nothing's confirmed yet, I'd expect to see an X9 Ultra in a few months with that Snapdragon chip, which is usually a good deal more expensive and also previously has been China only. I've also got to give Oppo credit for giving us one of the best displays ever on a phone. A couple of new features this year. It can go as low as 1 nit of brightness, so super dim, ideal for scrolling through Reddit late at night. And we're talking 1800 nits of full screen brightness, topping out at 3600 nits for peak HDR. There's also a ton of eye comfort features, including the super fast 2160Hz PWM to help reduce flicker, particularly at low brightnesses. A lot of people can get eye strain and headaches from that sort of PWM flicker, so that high rate definitely helps. We have a brand new 3D ultrasonic fingerprint reader, which is 35% faster, 33% more reliable, they tell me. Most of the time I still use the face unlocking, but having a properly reliable fingerprint reader, really nice. There are, of course, lots of similarities between a certain fruit-based rival, not least this quick button on the side here, which is basically the action button on the iPhone. And by default, this opens up the new AI Mind Space, which is a really cool new hub for collecting your thoughts and voice recordings and screenshots and everything all together, where the AI can sort of categorize and sort through it. But you can also switch it to Do Not Disturb or a flashlight, voice recorder, translator, anything you fancy. And then on the other side, we have this quick button, aka camera control. Tap to take a photo, swipe to zoom in and out, although you can turn all that off if you prefer. I mean, fundamentally, all phones now seem to be on this iPhoneification sort of trend where there's just so many similarities in terms of the hardware, the software, but it also means that if you are using an iPhone and you want to jump to this, then it's easier than ever. You will feel more at home here. And speaking of Apple, they've made it easier than ever to connect this to your iPhone or your MacBook laptop. I actually do use a MacBook and this now at the same time. Drag and drop files, you can mirror the phone, you can use it as the camera for the laptop. All those lovely iPhone features you can basically do with this on your Mac as well. And then finally, we have the software, this ColorOS 16, which Oppo say brings a new standard of smoothness, thanks to a new rendering engine and what they're calling seamless animation. There's really not much else to say, except it's incredibly fast, and particularly when you're multitasking, quickly switching between apps, it all feels fluid. If you go into the settings menu and then scroll right down to AI, this gives you a list of the AI tools that you've got. From search and writer, translate, there's a new AI recorder, and we also get some of the best AI photo editing tools. There's the usual AI eraser and enhanced clarity, unblur, remove reflections, but there's also this new AI relight, which can make your portraits, which have maybe been taken in trickier lighting, look much better. So that is the new Oppo Find X9 Pro. If you do fancy checking this out, I will leave a link in the description. Also, drop a comment if you've got any questions or thoughts on this. Thank you so much for watching, guys, and I'll see you next time right here on the Tech Chat.